Prayer is the cornerstone of our relationship with God. When we say that, we usually refer to personal prayer, the prayer that we do on our own. But we should also attend to communal prayer, the prayer that we do together, and in particularly the liturgy. Liturgy is the official communal prayer of the church. In ancient Rome, the word liturgia meant public works or works of the people, and referred to things like aqueducts or roads. The early church eventually appropriated that word for their own worship of the one true God, meaning that this is the work that the people did to honor the Lord. While the words and rituals of liturgies have changed over the centuries, today they're always set forth in official liturgical texts. These are the big books that the priest or deacon uses when they're celebrating the liturgies of the church. Now, these texts are always approved by the Pope in Latin, and local bishops' conferences, such as the USCCB, have authority to help determine translation into local languages. No one, not even the priest who celebrates Mass, has the authority to make changes to it. They have the duty to celebrate the liturgies according to the Church's official texts. But not every liturgy is going to look the same because the Church does give options within the liturgy, for instance, in the choices of music and even in some local cultural customs. For instance, the order of matrimony includes some optional rites from Latino cultures that are incorporated into the Church's matrimony liturgy. When most of us think about the liturgy, we think about the sacraments, but the liturgical prayer of the Church extends just beyond the seven sacraments. It also includes things like the Liturgy of the Hours. This is the official prayer that all clergy and members of religious communities pray several times throughout the day. It also includes various household liturgies and blessings that we don't see very often. The USCCB has actually put together a book of these called Catholic Household Blessings and Prayers. This includes various rituals that families can do together in the home, including such annual celebrations as birthdays, the new school year, and rituals around various liturgical seasons, such as Advent, Lent, Epiphany, and so on. This is a good reminder that the liturgy isn't just something that priests do. It's something that we are all called to participate in. The assembly has its own particular role when the church gathers for the liturgy. We're called to full, conscious, and active participation in the liturgical life of the church. Now, yes, this includes standing and kneeling and saying the prayers of the liturgy, but it also means an interior participation, directing our hearts and our minds to God and allowing the liturgy to penetrate into us so that we are conformed to God's love and His mercy. The liturgy is the highest form of prayer. At the Second Vatican Council, the bishops of the Church taught that every liturgical celebration, because it is an action of Christ the priest and of His body, which is the Church, is a sacred action surpassing all others. This means that the liturgy is an expression of our communion, first of all with Jesus, with whom we enter into relationship whenever we enter into prayer, but also with one another. The liturgy is the church gathered together in praise and worship of the one true God, and so is an expression of our communion, our relationship with one another. Whenever we enter into the liturgy, we bring with it our own personal life and experience as well. This includes our devotional prayer, our personal prayer, our individual prayer. Such devotional prayer life should enhance our encounter with Christ in the liturgy and lead us to greater participation in the liturgy. Such devotions and pious practices should also be done in harmony with and not supersede the liturgical year. In other words, we shouldn't allow our personal prayer life to overshadow the liturgical expression of prayer that we also enter into together. But when we enter into the liturgy, we also bring with it all of our cares, our joys, and our sacrifices of the week, and they're brought to the altar at Mass on Sunday along with the bread and wine. And the priest at the Mass prays, "Pray, brethren, that my sacrifice and yours may be acceptable to God." He's asking us to place our own sacrifice onto the altar along with the bread and wine, to be transformed in the Mass, to be a sacrifice acceptable to the Lord. Finally, the liturgy should also lead us into greater Christian action and witness in the world. The final words of the Mass are, "Go." Go out into the world, take the graces that you have received in the liturgy, and share them with others. We don't live in the church building, but we live as disciples in the world, and we are called to allow our liturgical participation to enter into the world with us. The words of dismissal remind us that the graces we receive in the liturgy, and especially in our reception of the body and blood of Christ, are meant to flow through us and to be shared with those we meet the other 6 days of the week. Here are some reflection questions for you and your family. What liturgical celebration, a baptism, a wedding, etc., stands out in your memory? What made that celebration so memorable? Where do you experience the presence of Jesus most clearly in the liturgy? And how has participation in the liturgy strengthened your family's faith? How can the liturgy draw you closer together as a domestic church? And here's your family's challenge for this week. This Sunday, when you prepare for Mass, say a Hail Mary as a family and ask God to direct your hearts and minds to Him as you participate in the liturgy. Afterwards, discuss what parts of the Mass spoke to you and how you were drawn towards greater participation. From all of us at the Diocese of Lafayette-in-Indiana, may God continue to bless you and your family.